Within the healthcare basket, let's talk about what could be in the store for the diagnostic as well as some of the hospital related counters. Joining us in the discussion, we have Sumit Gupta, AVP Research at Centrum Broking. Hi Sumit, good to be speaking with you. First off, let me start with asking you what is the expectation now from the diagnostic companies, given the fact that we have already got the numbers from Thyrocare, looks like a strong set, but do you believe that now the outlook looks even more better when it comes to the larger players, case in point being Dr. Lal as well as Metropolis?
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so with respect to diagnostics, we can see majorly the revenue growth of around, we are building around 12 to 13% kind of growth, majorly led by volume, which is a test volume growth. However, patient volume growth is likely to be around 3 to 4%. And if you see, the mix change is likely to drive 1 to 2% kind of growth. So diagnostic sector over the last like few quarters and going forward also, we expect majorly test volume growth driving the overall revenue for the sector. Now, from company to company, let's say for Dr. Lal, they are primarily focused on increasing the volume and a mix of a change in some mix, basically 1 to 2%. However, for let's say Metropolis, it would be around 7% kind of volume growth, and apart from that, 4 to 7% kind of price growth, and apart from that, volume growth of around 5 to 6%. So it depends from company to company, but volume growth is something. Test volume growth is something which is likely to drive the overall revenue growth for this quarter and as for the next few quarters also.
Right. Very good morning to you, Sumit. This is Shell also joining in the conversation, and you did mention the fact that how volume or test volume growth is what will be driving the earnings going ahead for all of these companies. If you could help us understand that the diagnostic companies have said that they've taken a price hike in the quarter gone by, that is in Q4. How much of the price hike are you factoring in when you are building in your projections for the numbers?
Yeah, so for Metropolis, we are building around 7% kind of price hike. On YY basis, for Dr. Lal, we are expecting around 1 to 2%, a marginal 1 to 2%, including a mix change. And for Vijay, we are taking around almost flat. So basically, it depends from company to company.
All right, and along with that, Sumit, help us understand that how are you building up the RPOBs number, especially for the hospital chains in the quarter gone by? What could actually drive the momentum going ahead? And do you believe that given the fact that going in the next couple of quarters, that is expected to be a bit of a seasonally strong quarter for the hospital chains, the commentary could be on the positive side?
Yeah, Q4 largely for the hospital sector is the strongest quarter across the hospital sector, except barring one or two companies. In general, Q4 is the strongest, followed by Q2, then Q3 and Q1. So if you see for hospital this quarter, obviously if you see the majority of the growth would be driven by bed additions, which were done this year. And apart from that, we are building an ARPOB growth of around 1 to 2% kind of growth on a basically from aggregate basis. If we take from company point of view, it is like basically we are taking 2 to 3% kind of ARPOB growth in Max Medanta and so 8 to 9% kind of growth in Aster. So it depends from company to company specific, but overall on aggregate basis, we are building around 2% kind of ARPOB growth. The growth, as I told you, will be largely led by the bed additions.
Right. And also, what about margins then? What sort of margins are you expecting for the hospitals and diagnostic sector as a whole?
So as a whole, we are building it almost flat on a YY basis.
Right. But that's your margin expectation. But I wanted to understand your pecking order when you talk about the diagnostics and the hospital space, given the fact that it's a very vast space at this point in time. Which company do you think ranks the best?
So within diagnostic, we are positive on Dr. Lal. And within hospitals, it will be Aster and then followed by Medanta and Max.
Sumit, but once again, pushing you a little more when it comes to the diagnostics change, because just last year we were all discussing about the price war happening, how there was a pressure on the pricing front and how this is actually impacting the company's expansion plans as well. But now do you believe that the worst is behind and the companies can now once again go ahead with more expansion plans domestically, as well as the volumes, like you said, will support them too?
Yes. So what is happening, what has happened in the diagnostic industry, as we all know that there was a lot of players which entered the market. However, if you see in diagnostics, it is basically low barriers to entry business. However, to sustain the profitability, it's quite challenging. So current situation is the incumbents have really recouped their margins to almost pre-COVID levels. So that is something which will continue to drive the which will be beneficial for the incumbents like Dr. Lal or Metropolis. And going forward, also within the diagnostic industry, consolidation is something which is not very frequent because the acquirer would look at an acquiry which is which should have some scale. It's not just that one should you will see a lot of M&A going on this sector. What I personally believe is there would be like one or two basically M&As which will be happening, but that would depend on the kind of scalability or the kind of geographic penetration that the acquiring company would be providing for.
Sumit, I just wanted to understand about the hospital space, and I'm actually getting back to that once again because I wanted to understand what sort of an occupancy are we seeing for the hospital space? Any back of the envelope calculation that you've done or some numbers that you have that you can help us understand?
So as such, occupancy is such like we are like expecting around on an aggregate basis around 160 bips kind of occupancy decline. Within that, we are expecting around, let's say, for decline for around 500 to 600 bips kind of decline in Aster DM and Max Healthcare occupancy. However, for let's say Yatharth or Medanta, I'm expecting occupancy increase with on a by basis.
Sumit,
So you can see around 60% kind of occupancy, and let's say for Max it would be around 73%, or Medanta 62% kind of occupancy. For Aster, I'm expecting around almost around 62%. So it depends from company to company, but overall basis on aggregate, occupancy is likely to decline.
All right, Sumit, but we have already seen a lot of consolidation happening within the hospital chain, Sumit, and some of these bigger chains were actually eyeing the capex plan and trying the expansion route through inorganic approach. Do you believe that this trend is here to stay? And along with that, I also just wanted to add on, given the fact that there's so much of uncertainty around with respect to the tariff concerns, as well as the international tourism is also getting affected. Do you believe that this is one of the segments that can actually help the hospital chains going ahead?
Yeah, so I'm positive on the hospital industry as a whole. Regarding your first question, from the M&A point of view, over the next 5 years at least, we would see a lot of M&A going on this sector. So company, let's say with a bed capacity of 5,000 or let's say 10,000 kind of beds will acquire a company with 1,000, 2,000 kind of beds company, and depending on geographic penetration and the kind of scalability, or it depends on the mix. So how they want to expand, because at a point of time, organic growth or basically from an expansion point of view, be it greenfield or brownfield, becomes a challenge. So in that sense, we would see a lot of M&A or inorganic expansion going in the hospital industry over the medium to long term point of view. Second is regarding the tariff. I don't see much any impact from the tariff point of view. Obviously, from international patient point of view, there might be some, if there is any geopolitical issue which is there, so it might impact the hospital industry. Let's say the geopolitical situation in Bangladesh, it was the major impact was on the eastern part of India, the hospitals which are based in the eastern part of India or northeast part of India. So Bangladesh volume flows towards that, and some bit goes to the south also. So it depends from company to company how much of mix is there from the international patients, but I don't see much impact from the international patient point of view.
All right, point taken. Well, thank you so much, Sumit, for joining us on the show to give us a holistic view of the healthcare, especially hospital and diagnostic space, and what should one expect or anticipate in the quarter gone by. Thank you once again for joining us.